So where is Cosmos going over the next year? I think we've got something around 30 IBC connected blockchains. I think we see 10x that over the next year. There's like 60 to 80 billion dollars in IBC addressable value. I think we see roughly 10x that in the next year.
And we are back. Hello and welcome, DeFiTimes community, to yet another episode of This Week in Cosmos. And today we have him on the show, no one else than Jack Zampolin. Hey, Jack, how are you doing? It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Good morning, good evening, as the case may be.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for being awake around this time for this interview.
I work with folks over in Germany all the time, so this is prime time of the morning for me. I've already made breakfast and I'm on my second cup of coffee, so you got me ready to go.
Yeah, in Germany it's already dark outside, so it's a big time difference.
I'm ready for winter to be over and for the nights to start getting longer again. I think we're all there.
Yeah, especially in Germany, the weather is like disgusting nowadays. But I think it would be very interesting for everybody who's maybe new to Cosmos and new to crypto to know who you are. I mean, everybody who attended Cosmoverse know it already, but what is your background and how did you enter crypto actually?
That's a great question. So I first found Bitcoin back in, I think, probably when that guy bought the pizza with it. I think I read a headline about it and I was like, this is cool. And my partner in Strangelove, my friend Tyler Schmidt, and I talked about it and we were like, that's a really cool thing. Like, how do we buy Bitcoins? Couldn't quite figure it out then. And then fast forward to 2013, that big Bitcoin run up happened then. And Tyler figured out a way to use Mt. Gox and he bought some Bitcoins there. And about a month or two later, Coinbase opened up in the US and I bought some Bitcoins there. And during that cycle, Tyler lost his Bitcoins in the Mt. Gox hack and I sold mine for an 80% loss because paper hands at that point. So that was kind of my first exposure to Bitcoin. And during that cycle, I was actually a professional chef. So I was cooking at a fine dining restaurant and I kept finding myself thinking man, that's really cool. I'd love to go work on Bitcoin things because Bitcoin's so cool. And if we fast forward to the 2017 cycle, I had started teaching myself how to program, done a programming boot camp, and been working for a database company in San Francisco for 2 years. And my roommate at the time in 2017 had just started working for a company called Blockstack, which is a Bitcoin company based in New York. It's the team behind Namecoin, which started in 2012 and was actually one of the first blockchains to do something besides just store UTXOs. Namecoin also had this sort of DNS-like functionality. You see projects like Handshake coming out now. Blockstack's still around. So anyway, I started working at Blockstack during that cycle in that spring, and sort of that was kind of how I got into crypto.
Wow, that's a cool story. I also like the fact that you basically not like your partner bought your Bitcoin with Mt. Gox, so you got lucky. but then the market dumped, and then you sold it for minus 80%. So yeah.
It makes, when we see volatility like we've seen, especially over the last couple of weeks, it makes it a lot more palatable having seen it so many times before. While I wasn't a huge investor in that 2013 cycle, I saw it, I lost thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And obviously, the crash, the Mt. Gox crash was way worse than anything we see right now. It was even worse than the Corona crash, because
Yeah.
back then at that point, like everybody thought like crypto would die, Bitcoin would die, because crypto was only Bitcoin basically. And right now we have this flourishing ecosystem of DeFi, NFTs, and then we have Cosmos coming up, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
And yeah, so let's start with like an introductory question. You're heavily involved with Strangelove Ventures. So could you tell us what is all about, and also kind of like what differentiates you to other VCs in the crypto industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Strangelove Ventures kind of started with my friend Tyler and I investing in crypto. So I mentioned our experience back in the 2013 cycle, but in the 2017 cycle, we found a bunch of cool stuff to kind of work on together. And towards the end, I was working at Blockstack at the time, and he was working at a advertising user experience consultancy. And we both thought kind of early 2018, like, hey, let's go do this crypto thing. And he quit his job and he was trying to work on a mining company and doing user experience consulting for crypto on the side. Back in 2018, there weren't a lot of like actual apps live outside of, I think Uniswap had just launched, but other than that, there really weren't any crypto products outside of centralized exchanges. So that was a really tough business. And I think anyone who's looked into mining in any great detail knows that's a tough business too. But Tyler also partnered up with me when I launched my validator on the Cosmos Hub after we launched the Cosmos Hub. So what has become Strangelove sort of started out of the validation business that Tyler and I have been working on now for the last 4 years, something like that. So anyway, and we also invest in a number of sort of Cosmos ecosystem companies. The thesis behind Strangelove, the investment fund, in a lot of ways is sort of this IBC maximalist idea. We want to invest in anything that's addressable in the broader interchain. So that means right now, a bunch of Cosmos projects. But as IBC expands, we're working with the Composable team and also have an investment in that project to bring IBC over to Substrate. But pretty much anywhere IBC travels is where Strangelove will travel. And what makes us different is that focus, and then B, the sort of expertise and experience is that we can bring to entrepreneurs, especially in the IBC space. As the engineer who wrote, me personally, the Go relayer, which is one of the two major relayer implementations. And I was the PM on IBC for a couple of years as well. We have sort of a unique view into this broader interchain space and a unique set of connections that we can bring to teams. And I think that's really what differentiates Strangelove from the rest of the VCs out there.
Yeah, that's very interesting because even though the Cosmos ecosystem is growing at an insane speed right now, we don't see that many VC firms like entering Cosmos. So there were like many VC firms in Polkadot very early on, and of course like Ethereum, but Cosmos was a little bit like lagging behind. Like a researcher friend told me that one of the problems was that Cosmos is very alternative from the idea and from the concept. So it's like cool that you like also like help that you're like something like a helping hand in the in the Cosmos ecosystem. And
I would push back on that a little bit. VCs have been in Cosmos since the beginning. Polychain, Paradigm, or obviously the two kind of biggest in crypto, and they're huge investors in Atom, and most other Cosmos projects really. And in fact, because of the high barrier to entry for launching a Cosmos chain, VCs kind of generally see Cosmos projects as very much more likely to succeed than just sort of a random Ethereum smart contract that you can throw up in a few days. So yeah, there are a lot of VCs in Cosmos. They're just not super public about it in a lot of cases. So, all the major ones, Galaxy and all the big funds that you know about, like they're in these Cosmos projects, but a lot of them just aren't publicly acknowledging it. But if you go look at the validator sets, you will see a ton of VCs.
Yeah, that's very interesting to know. Like, it's like a classic scenario of like the signal and the noise. Like, if you go to Cointelegraph and stuff, you always hear like that they invest in like Polkadot, Pilcher, XYZ, and so on and so forth. But they're barely like breaking news about Cosmos. So I think this is like very interesting. But like what I like really want to highlight about your firm is the Strangelove Lab. So like you basically claim that you actively build alongside the companies and the technologies you invest in. But what does this mean precisely? And is this common in the VC firms? So does other VC firms have similar departments like Strangelove Ventures?
Yeah, this is, I am not an original on this. I watch the best out there. Polychain and Paradigm, I think, are probably two of the best VCs in this space. And they both have labs components where they've got engineers who are working on sort of shared infrastructure between a number of different projects. I think Georgios from the Paradigm team, who's building out a bunch of Rust tooling for Ethereum development, is a great example of that. And in that same way, here at Strangelove, we have engineers. We are building out common infrastructure for IBC. One of the pieces of infrastructure we build and maintain is the Go relayer as the piece that sort of like stitches these chains together. We also have an opportunity to use that to help test and bring to market new IBC protocols, such as the IBC routing that we shipped to the hub recently. We were able to build that out so quickly because we have the relayer testing infrastructure to make that happen like that. Another project that we're working on is Horcrux, which is a threshold signer for Tendermint validators. So this allows validators to take their signing key, which is normally just on one machine, and shard it into multiple pieces, giving your validator setup fault tolerance and a little bit more security. And the work that we're doing with Composable to bring substrate IBC to market is a great example of that. But there's a number of other teams that we've helped from a bootstrapping perspective. Osmosis, I think, is a great example. We've been extremely active in the Osmosis relayer community. We offer a lot of node infrastructure to the broader relaying community, as well as running relayers on Osmosis and debugging issues there. So that's just a few examples of how we kind of build alongside the projects. But yeah, that's actually a fairly common pattern in crypto at this point. And I think that it's a huge value add that a venture firm can bring, because if you can bring a proven track record of helping projects with sort of some of this infrastructure that they don't have time for on their roadmap or might not get built otherwise, it's a huge value add.
You touched on earlier that you guys basically invest where IBC goes. And I really find that interesting. And let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
So what's your investment thesis in IBC all about?
So I think that this kind of gets to the way that both Tyler and I look at tech, and it's very much based in like history and sort of the evolution of technology. If you look at the way that computers have scaled globally, initially in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s, people kept building bigger and built bigger supercomputers. People still build those today. But the way that you would sort of connect to computing is you might have a terminal, like a little screen, and it would connect to the supercomputer, and you would do all of your computing there. And this is sort of a much more centralized model, but it's hard to scale individual computers to handle the type of traffic that you need to support millions and millions of users. And the way that computers have scaled is the individual PC revolution, and then connecting each other to each other via the internet. Another great example of this is Google. prior to Google, when companies had to run computations on very large data sets, they would do that in supercomputers. And this was common practice up into the late 90s, early 2000s. Google released a paper in the early 2000s, I believe it was 2004, called MapReduce. And the way that they were able to get much greater processing speeds was by buying a bunch of the cheapest computers they could find, networking them together, and then running jobs across the entire cluster. So, if we step back and think, how does this impact blockchain? And what does this tell us about the future of blockchain? One blockchain is never going to be able to scale to satisfy the needs of all of the users around the world. Solana is really great, and there's a huge case for vertically scaling blockchains to handle more and more transactions, the same way that there's a case for making computers faster and faster. This new MacBook Pro I have is great. It compiles Rust in like a tenth of the time that it used to take me. But it's not gonna be able to scale to, say, support all 100 of my friends or all 1,000 of my friends or whatever it is. So if we keep that in mind and we go think about blockchains, how are blockchains going to scale? They're not going to scale by an individual coin becoming worth tens of millions of dollars. They're going to scale by making transactions cheap and providing enough capacity for everyone around the world, all 8 billion of us roughly. And that's what we've seen is when one blockchain gets congested, we started seeing this back with Bitcoin in 2011, 2013. In 2013, there was Litecoin, there was Namecoin, there was Dogecoin came about right around then. So, blockchains have scaled by scaling horizontally this entire time. And what has historically been the link between those blockchains and allowed the value to move between them is centralized exchanges. So the IBC, back to the IBC thesis, the IBC thesis is that blockchains are going to scale to 8 billion users by scaling out. There's going to be hundreds, thousands, millions of blockchains, and they're all going to connect to each other and be able to transfer value in this kind of seamless, decentralized manner in the exact same way the internet works. And we architected IBC very similarly to the way TCP/IP is architected. Handshakes, secure channels, data over top of those channels. So, I think that this thesis is basically like, we've seen this before in history. We've seen technology and computing scale. There's a sort of way that it looks, starts centralized, i.e. on one chain, either Bitcoin or Ethereum with DeFi, and then scales out horizontally. And there's a lot of value to capture on that long tail. And that's basically what IBC is.
Yes, and I think this is why this show's name is This Week in Cosmos. I think this is exactly what everybody loves about Cosmos, that it is so open-minded. And there is no tribalism or maximalism in Cosmos, so not that much, because it's like basically, hey, let's connect everything. Yeah. And you talked about this growth potential. So you think that the blockchain industry will grow very similar to the internet, but let's get to this growth point. So what I found very interesting it was in summer 2021 when Osmosis launched. We basically, so for me, it felt like, okay, now we see the first moves towards this insane growth that IBC could bring, because all of a sudden everybody used Osmosis, everybody bought some region here and there and provided liquidity. So for the very first time, we saw somewhat of a network effect. And the network effect continued during 2021. So what is your take on the growing network effect that IBC develops?
Yeah, we're only seeing the beginning of that right now. I've been going back and forth on Twitter a little bit about interactions between different smart contracts on different blockchains. one of the most powerful pieces of IBC is that you can build arbitrary application protocols. Now, that's a word salad for most people. So let me kind of break that down a little bit. When you create a secure communications channel, you can send kind of all kinds of data across it. You know, right now, the only thing we're sending is tokens, basically, and that's all of the IBC packets. But you can construct much more complicated interactions between these blockchains. Say, here are some tokens, and I want you to lock them up in this contract and do X, Y, and Z with them. And you know, all of the sort of complex DeFi composability that we're used to in some of these other ecosystems is absolutely possible in Cosmos, and we're architected for it. And what we've been waiting for is kind of multiple smart contract enabled blockchains to start building these pieces out. We've got Terra live with IBC in the CosmWasm environment, and Terra enables this. And we're going to see Monero live here very soon with the Judo upgrade. Some huge upgrades coming into Cosmos this year. We've got the Osmosis upgrade, which is going to bring in a lot of performance and stability in Osmosis. The Hub upgrade, which brings in the Hub router, as well as a number of improvements. And then Moneta for bringing CosmWasm into Juno. Once that happens, you'll be able to have smart contracts over in Juno create IBC channels that talk to smart contracts over in Terra over custom application protocols that allow for this really tight coupling between pieces on different chains. I think this probably has the strongest implications for people who are building sort of multi-chain applications. You'll be able to have your application sort of talk over a very rich protocol between these two chains, something that's just not possible over these sort of custodial and token-only EVM bridges that exist, but that link the Ethereum ecosystem together. Cosmos has been built with interoperability natively in mind, and I think that that's going to be sort of a huge differentiator going forward. One other thing about this sort of like decentralized versus centralized model, you know, you guys sort of alluded to it earlier, where you're like, Cointelegraph doesn't talk about Cosmos. It's because we don't have a benevolent dictator for life. We don't have a central marketing department. There's no one who can stand up and say, hey, I speak for Cosmos. And, you know, that's by design, but that also has significant downsides in terms of being able to sort of amplify and speak with one voice that is needed to sort of stand out from the crowd. So we kind of have to stand out in other ways. And, you know, the way that we've done that is by growth and by building and shipping the best technology in the space. Facebook has acknowledged that. They've based their cryptocurrency efforts almost entirely on the Cosmos architecture. Vitalik has recently come around, and basically they're going to be competing with Celestia to ship data availability chain first. I have a feeling Celestia wins that battle. So anyway, you know, it's been kind of wild. Back in 2018, when I started working on this, the Cosmos thesis was like kind of weird and people didn't really know what to do with it. And now it's kind of broadly accepted as the way that blockchains are going to scale. And, you know, the sort of thought leadership in blockchain is all saying that with one voice roughly right now. Tezos is going to move over to Tendermint. Zcash is going to move over to Tendermint. All of these people are going to use IBC. And I don't think the market has really picked up on that. And, you know, the folks in the Cosmos ecosystem know all about it. We're pretty stoked for it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think something that our listeners would be very, very interested in is like would be to know what are your top predictions where IBC is going in the next year, like in 2022.
So I think that, let me give you some predictions. Oh, the rain just started. Great. It's going to rain here for the next like 5 days. So like, I'm just going to be inside, which is going to be great. I've got a ton of coding to do. So where is Cosmos going over the next year? You know, I think we've got something around 30 IBC connected blockchains. I think we see 10x that over the next year. There's like 60 to 80 billion dollars in IBC addressable value. I think we see roughly 10x that in the next year. These are the kind of growth targets that are in my mind. As the SDK product manager, my goal was total value locked on Cosmos SDK based chains, and like, so those are the kind of top level things I see. Smart contract to smart contract interactions of the type we were talking about earlier are likely going to be the fastest growing bit of IBC traffic. I also think that, the amount of value transacted over IBC, like we don't really currently have very good visibility on that. Midscan has started showing a little bit of that. Map of zones is going to start surfacing that as well. But I expect to see, like, if we look historically, I expect to see that amount of value transacted over IBC to go up probably 10 to 100x. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking for in the next year. Yeah.
Yes, and I think you also like mentioned some projects that will like enable like IBC, and like one project that was like a little bit highly anticipated was, for example, like Kava. They are like also like coming closer to the Cosmos ecosystem. Finally.
I'm an advisor in Kava. I've known that team since before they launched.
So yeah, what's your general take on this addition to the space? Because I think they are like implementing a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I agree. Borrowing and lending is a huge part of blockchains in DeFi. Cosmos currently doesn't have one of those. The Umi team, who I love, Bez was one of the best engineers on the SDK and really helped us get the hub out. Like, we wouldn't have been able to do that without Bez. I'm excited for both of those protocols to come live. The Kava team has done a lot of work and has kind of been embedded in the Binance ecosystem for a really long time. They've had a BEP3 bridge, and they've been doing a lot of cross-chain DeFi stuff for a very long time. Excited to see them bring that competency to the broader Interchain. So yeah, I mean, you can access a lot of those products via Terra. You can go to Terra and find Anchor. So I'd say they're probably the first ones to bring a number of these sort of DeFi class products to Cosmos, but Kava will be strong competition and good alternative for folks who are looking for a few other things there. But yeah, like, excited for Kava to join the Interchain. I've been talking with that team about IBC for years at this point.
Yes, and besides Kava, like we talked about it, how Kava is somewhat like a missing piece of the Cosmos puzzle right now, and they will basically bring in like a new part of another part of the financial system that is like going to be decentralized by IBC. And another one is like Comdex, so like a completely different asset class with synthetic assets. So for me, this was like kind of a game changer, because like it seems like the big finance is really like coming to Cosmos. So how is your excitement about like Comdex coming to Cosmos?
Yeah, I'm stoked. Tushar from Persistence was one of the first folks I met when I joined the ecosystem, and they've been working on Comdex for a very long time. I think that's an excellent project, and really excited to see them launch. This is sort of this broader IBC sort of expanding to encompass more and more of the broader blockchain space, and to bring these sort of truly decentralized bridges between all of these projects. And it's going to bring in an absolutely tremendous amount of capital into the space. So yeah, excited to see Comdex launch. I've talked to that team a bit. I really like them.
Yes, and I'm asking these questions because we see like how many pieces are coming together now, like how prosperous Cosmos, the Cosmos ecosystem is becoming. One project after another is like joining the Cosmos ecosystem. And now we see like kind of a uniting effect, I would say, with Interchain Security. And so many people are excited about it, also because of the Gravity Bridge. So Interchain security, what is Interchain security in a nutshell all about, and how will Cosmos change when like Interchain security is like fully shipped, if you want to say it like this?
Can we come back to the Gravity Bridge or come back to Interchain Security? Which one do you want to do?
Interchain security and then Gravity Bridge.
Okay. So yeah, Interchain Security is one of the reasons people have always been so excited about Polkadot. Is like Polkadot has this fantastic value capture mechanism where projects that launch on Polkadot end up paying rent to the Polkadot chain. Like this is basically what the Interchain Security feature is, but they've come at it from a very different way than we have. And this is one of the reasons why I love Cosmos, is like, we did it the right way. Polkadot went out and they sold this big grand vision and they said, we're going to build this whole thing and it's going to come live. And they've been kind of working over the years to do that. They haven't really focused on any of the individual pieces as a product in their own right, which is why the SDK has kind of beat Substrate as an application platform, is because like, what we did was kind of the opposite. We said, we're going to do this whole big thing, but we're going to ship each of these individual pieces as their own products. Like Tendermint, just Tendermint before the Cosmos SDK had a bunch of users. There's banks, there's major financial institutions, there's IBM based a bunch of different Hyperledger products on top of Tendermint. So Tendermint was its own product. There's other application frameworks built on top of Tendermint in Haskell and in JavaScript and in I think those are the big ones. And then we shipped the Cosmos SDK, and we obviously like, built out this huge user base there. Binance was some of the first users. Terra, Kava, Akash, a lot of these other companies that we kind of know and love now. And that was the sort of Cosmos SDK. And then we shipped IBC, and IBC has its own users. So what we've done is like ship products every step of the way and try to build this from the bottom up to get to this sort of place where Atom can do value extraction and create value out of this ecosystem that it's built, as opposed to sort of doing that more top down. Now, as we talked about, decentralization has its negatives, and especially from a messaging perspective, this is one area where we've been kind of soft. But, you know, from a technical perspective, we're shipping this thing. There's a lot of really good work going on for it, and I'm really excited to see that roll out over the course of the next year. It's a fiendishly complicated system with a bunch of moving parts, but you know, the team that shipped IBC is working on that now, and like the work that I've seen so far is fantastic. So a lot of my last year has been spent working on the Gravity Bridge. Like I'm not out there talking about it all the time, but like I started last October working on the Gravity Bridge, and I've been working actively on it since then. It's Sommelier, which is my other company. Strangelove does a lot of work for Som, so like kind of tightly coupled there. But Som is using the Gravity Bridge. We're building our entire product on top of that. And the piece that we're using is not the token transfer piece, though. It's this cross-chain smart contracts call piece of it, which is obviously just a different use case and a lot more complicated, honestly. So I haven't been actively involved in the sort of token bridge efforts, but really cool to see the Althea team ship their token bridge. And I expect to see that bring a massive amount of liquidity into Cosmos. If you guys have used any of these other bridges, it's going to be a much better user experience than a lot of these other bridges, much lower latencies, much lower fees. We've done a lot of work on Ethereum gas optimization for users. So really expect to see that be huge. And it sort of is the first chain to publicly say that it's going to take advantage of the hub's shared security, which is just massive. I think both for shared security, it will drive that development and help provide a first use case, as well as for the Gravity Bridge, which is able to kind of go to market now and then use this shared security later. And the bridge especially requires that security because there's economic incentives for those validators to collude and steal things if there's not enough tokens.
Yeah.
if there's not enough value in the bridge tokens. So very excited for Gravity Bridge. One feature that I really would love to see them ship is in the same way we do the hub routing, where you can send a packet to the Cosmos hub and it will route it to another blockchain. You can build this functionality into Gravity Bridge where you send tokens over from Ethereum and then it's forwarded directly through the Gravity Bridge to somewhere else without you as the user having to do anything else. So this would be pull money off of Ethereum and it goes directly into your wallet on Osmosis.
Wow.
A minute probably is the amount of latency there. So
yeah, that's cool. So most users won't even notice that they are using Gravity Bridge.
I think that in the end state, that is absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the goal of IBC is to sort of abstract away this whole blockchain layer. Like, we don't want people to have to think about this. It's complicated.
Yeah.
we want to build systems that expose all this information if you want it, in the same way that when you're surfing the internet, you can click up on the green shield and see the certificate authorities and ensure that the data you're getting is from where you think you're getting it from. You'll be able to do that in IBC, but it's going to be behind something like a green shield, and the users are not going to have to think about it. It's the only way we scale to 8 billion people. It becomes in their mind and in everyone's mind this sort of underlying layer that just supports everything that you want to do on top of it. And, you know, IBC are those kind of industrial rails to support that type of use case. There's a lot of work on user experience to get there. You know, the Relayer DAO is maybe going to be the IBC user experience DAO. And we're going to be working on a lot of that stuff. Expect to hear more about that soon. But yeah, these things are coming, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and it really shows how far we have to go until we really scale for 8 billion people. Because right now we're at this early stage where, like, if you enter crypto, like, a new user has to store his or her private key, and it's so complicated. Nobody knows how it's done. It's very dangerous to store your private key at home, and it's like a lot of people are just they don't know what to do. And yeah, so as you said, in the future they will have an easier time. They won't even know that they are transacting on a blockchain. And we will look back at the early times of crypto and laugh how difficult it was to join the industry. But yeah, we have a long way to go. It's gonna take another 10 years, but we are definitely gonna make it.
Yeah, I think so. You know, key management is one of those things that's really, really hard. And right now, a lot of the tooling is just rough on that. The DAO project that the Juno folks are working on, I think is really interesting. This is going to allow easy management of multi-sigs, as well as sort of DAO type constructions where you have a token that represents ownership in a given account. So these are the types of things that you can do to kind of increase security. As an individual, being able to access a strong multi-sig is great. You can store one key in a bank account, store one key in a safe, and then have one that's you know, kind of hot. And there's a number of different security setups you can do there, but it helps remove sort of issues around key security. And I just think as an industry, that's probably the most important user experience work we can do.
Yeah, totally agree. Last question. What else are you excited about in the Cosmos ecosystem? So we talked about IBC, we talked about Interchain Security. What else?
There's a few things. One is Agoric. Mark Miller and Dean Trimble, who are two of the founders of Agoric, as well as that entire team. Honestly, I've known them for a while. Kate Stills is another fantastic engineer there. That's a really cool project written by a bunch of like OG cypherpunks from the 70s and 80s that is going to bring JavaScript as a smart contract programming language in a really thought out way to a broad group of users over IBC. These type of smart contract to smart contract interactions I was talking about earlier are going to be much more native in the Agoric chain than they are in other chains. And just talking with Dean in Lisbon and sort of looking at that roadmap there and what they're planning to launch with, it's very exciting. So that's one piece. Another piece is privacy over IBC. I think that secret networks kind of obviously out there first. They have a model that's based on Intel SGX. That's really exciting. And, you know, I'm sure a bunch of secret network folks who listen to this. There's another couple of other privacy projects I am excited about as well. Amora, which is by Chris Goes, who I worked closely with to ship IBC. I was kind of the product guy and he was kind of the engineering lead for that whole effort. That's a really exciting project that's doing a bunch of sort of mempool privacy stuff. But another project that I'm really excited about is Penumbra by Henry DeValence, who was a key developer in Zcash and is really experienced in zero knowledge proofs. They're building a Cosmos zone where you can send IBC packets to it, and the IBC packet doesn't publicly disclose where the funds are going. There's just a proof in the receiver field. So really a fully shielded Cosmos zone, and the only entities in that blockchain with strong identities are the validators themselves, which is basically the minimum amount you need for security, because you need to understand which validators have how many tokens, so that that's kind of publicly auditable and you know that no one's cheating the system. And Henry's building a shielded decentralized exchange on top of that, and a number of other pieces of functionality. I think those are a couple of the things that I'm most excited about, sort of additional smart contracting platforms and growth there, and then privacy and growth there.
Yes, and I mean, we talked about so many projects in today's episode, more than I expected, but what we really see is how prosperous Cosmos is, or like no comparison to like 1.5 years ago. Like we're talking about project and project and project and project. And yeah, it's like, I mean, it's also like causing a lot of FOMO being a cosmonaut these days, because you cannot read so many white papers. And it's like super hard to keep up to date. But speaking of staying up to date, what are good like couple of points to learn more about Strangelove Ventures and engage with the rest of your community?
Well, go to our website, strangelove.ventures. There's links to delegate to all of our validators. Do that. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Strangelove Ventures on Twitter. You know, we've got a Telegram room that is linked from the website as well. So come join our Telegrams. But we've really got a lot of work to do to sort of get the word out a little bit more. You guys have followed me, so you obviously know that I'm this huge sort of Cosmos and Atom supporter, and I'm very public about that. And I work really hard to get the word out, doing a lot of stuff like this. But Strangelove itself, you know, over the next year, looking forward to having a blog. One thing that I've seen recently, Cephalopod, which is the validator company from Informal, Ethan Buckman's company, has started posting the rationale behind each of their governance votes in the memo field of the transactions in which they vote. That's really cool. I'd love to do something like that. Strangelove has worked really hard on governance over this last year. Obviously, passing Prop 34 was kind of the beginning of that, but I've been actively involved in a number of governance campaigns across a number of chains in the Interchain, and with the sort of upcoming push for the Relayer DAO, we're going to do sort of 10x that. We're going to be putting out community spend proposals on pretty much every IBC connected chain. So looking forward to sort of doubling down in governance this next year and having a lot more content around that. But yeah, so where can folks go to learn more? A few places today. We'll have a lot more in the future. And yeah, look out for it.
Yeah, and as always, you can find all the necessary links in the description below. And of course, like if you like follow Jack on Twitter or like Strangelove Ventures, you will like also know as soon as more sources are like available or like live. So stay tuned for that. Guys, with that being said, Cosmos is growing at an insane speed right now, and I think we just got like a better like understanding or like a better overview of all these fast developments in today's episode. So Jack, thank you so much for being on, taking the time, and I wish you like a very pleasant start to the day. And yeah, it's rainy in California, but yeah, hope you enjoy the day.
You guys have made it a great start to the day, so thank you. I appreciate that.